Okay, this video or this lesson is a continuation of what we talked about in the previous lesson. In the previous lesson, we talked about squares and square roots and the definitions and how to find square roots if we know what the perfect square is. If we know that the number is a perfect square. Well, unfortunately, there's a lot of numbers that are not perfect square numbers. There's many more numbers that are not perfect square numbers than there are that are perfect square numbers. And last week you had um, copied all the perfect squares down and their square roots into between 1 and 12 into your notes. And this week I want you to expand that list from 13 all the way up to 20, and then do 30 and 40 and 50, and you'll see the pattern that happens when you do that. So uh, pause the video and copy this list and add it onto the list that you started last week. All right, so if we're estimating square roots, there's obviously the easiest way of doing that is just by simply plugging it into the calculator and doing it that way. But sometimes we're going to want to estimate square roots um, in our heads, or just sort of get a rough number between what two numbers, where you could say, well, the square root of 40 is between this number and this number. Okay, so let's do the estimate the square root of 40. So 40 is between two what perfect squares? Well, if we look and refer back to our notes, we can see that 6 squared is 36, and 7 squared is 49. So 40 is between which two perfect square numbers? Well, it's between 36 and 49. Well, when we look at this, the next thing it says is that 40 is closest to which of these numbers? Okay, that should be an M, not an N. Okay, so if we go, uh, there should be 49. Okay, so if we say, well, 40 minus 36 is 4, so 40 is 4 numbers away from 36, and 49 minus 40 is 9. So 40 is closest to 36. All right. So what's the square root of both of these numbers up here? Well, we know that the square root of 36 is equal to 6. You see that up here. And the square root of 49 is 7. So 40 is between 6 and 7 and is closest to 6 because it's closer to 36 than it is to 49. All right? That's all that we're really looking at doing with estimating these square roots. We'll do several examples of this. All right? Estimate the square root of 90. Well, if we look at what two perfect square numbers? Well, um, looking through, we're saying say 81 and 81, which is 9 squared, and then the next one up would be 10 squared, which is 100. So 90 is between 81 and 100. 90 is closest to which one of these numbers? Well, um, 90 minus 81 is 9, and 100 minus 90 is 10. So it's really close. It's really close between the two. It's really close. It's closer to 81. Okay, it's closer to 81. And what's the square root of both of these numbers? The square root of 81 is 9. Square root of 100 is 10. So 90 is between 9 and 10. It's closest to 9, although it's going to be really, really close to being right in the middle between both 9 and 10. And just to show how close it is, if I open up my calculator, okay, and I say what is the square root of 90, and I'll bet you it's going to be really close to 9.5. It is. It's 9.48, which if we round that off, that would be 9.5. So that is just this is just a really quick way to estimate between which two numbers it's going to be. Okay? Estimate the square root of 156. Well, let's see here. If we think about this, 12 squared is 144. 13 squared is 169. This is one of the ones that you copied down today. So if we subtract, or if we find a difference, 156. So it's been somewhere between 12 squared and 13 squared, between 144 and 169. So this is 13 away from that. 156 minus 144. 12 away from that. So it's slightly closer to this. All right. So it's going to be somewhere between 12. So it's between 12 and 13, but closest to 12. So about, and I'm just going to say about 12.5. And if we want to actually go ahead and just do it again, so square root of 156 is, once again, 12.48. Okay, so that's once again really, really close to 12 and a half. All right, estimate the square root of 306. Well, we might want to go back and look at our our notes that we took. Okay, it was 306. So 306 is between 289 and 324. So between 17 squared and 18 squared. All right. So 289 and 324. All right. So 17 squared and 18 squared. Okay. So 289 and 324. 289, 324. Okay. So when we do that, when we find out which one's the closest, if we put in 306 here, and turns to 2, turns into 9, 16, 17. So 17, 306. So it's 14, 18. We're seeming to choose the ones that are really close together. Okay, so we know that the square root of 306 is between the square root of 289 is less than it, and 324 is more than it. So if we do that, we know that 17 is less than or equal to square root of 306, which is less than or equal to 18. Okay, so 306 is between 17 and 18, and slightly closer to 17. Okay. All right, and one last one. Estimate 250, the square root of 250. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the list that we had. 250. So when we do that, 250 is between 225 and 256. 225 and 256. 225 and square root of 256. 225 is equal to 15 is equal to 16. Okay. So when we square root of 250 is between this. So 250 minus 225 is 25. So it's 25 away from that. And 6. So it's obviously closer to 256. So the square root of the square root of 250 is between 15 and 16, and is closer to 16. Okay. All right. So make sure that you ask me any questions if you don't understand something. Make sure you have all those that list updated and have it handy and ready to refer to. So we'll talk to y'all later.